let's get into the news. Four big stories happening right now in the culture war. Three of them you may know about, and one of them you probably don't know so much about. So let's go ahead and jump in. So first of all, an update on the Freedom Convoy, the Canadian truckers who've been protesting for human rights in Canada. So just winning all over the place in terms of kind of what's transpired over the past week or so. We have Alberta looking to ease COOF restrictions and get rid of vaccine passports. Huge news there. That's anticipated to happen in February. You have Quebec, which is now scrapping its plan to tax the unvaccinated, which is huge. I guess that was announced last month, and they're reversing course on that based on these protests. To be honest, just the fact that was even an idea is just insane to me. Like, I'm almost reminded of in certain places in Islam, there's this thing called a jizya, where like basically if you're a non-Muslim, you basically are allowed to live your normal life for the most part, your day-to-day living, so long as you pay a special tax for the non-Muslim community, right? So if you're a Jew or a Christian or I don't know, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, like that's basically like a special tax, right, for you to be afforded basic, liberty and quality of life, and not be, more or less punished in certain communities. And this is almost like a similar concept here. Quebec was like the fact that they were like even thinking about imposing this upon Canadian citizens simply for being unvaccinated. It's just crazy, right? Just like crazy. But anyway, a win that they actually were able to get that scrapped in Quebec. But like it doesn't even stop there. You have the tow truck companies who are basically saying, hey, we're not gonna tow these guys and their trucks. And this is after, the police try to stand up to the truckers, put down various blockades, which failed. There was even rumors of like calling in the Canadian military, which fortunately never happened because that would get messy really, really quick. And so that's a moral victory, right? These tow truck companies saying, yeah, we're not going to go and start towing these guys. That's a dangerous precedent, and we stand with them, right, in solidarity. So here's a letter from the Inter-Pacific company, just one of many examples of companies taking a stand with the truckers. And then you have more winning. It really doesn't stop there. Canada's Conservative former leader, O'Toole, he basically got voted out. He got boosted this past week, right? And that's in part because he refused to meet with the truckers. He was like, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to side with these guys, right? And he talked big during his campaign about like being like very, conservative and right wing and sort of pro freedom and standing up against these sort of left wing influences. But then he kind of capitulated and kind of has been singing a different tune that left a bad taste in people's mouth, and so he got booted the hell out of there. So that's a major development from this past week as well. And then it gets even better. The winning gets even better. So apparently, in O'Toole's absence, they have like an interim conservative leader. Her name is Candice Bergen. And she gave the most fiery speech this past week, basically just calling out Justin Trudeau and, condemning him for, basically refusing to meet with the peace-loving truckers. So you may recall this guy has been in hiding. He claimed to have the COOF in order to extend his hiding. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't actually have the COOF. But she, condemned him and asked him to apologize to these, quote, patriotic, peace-loving truckers that he accused of spreading hateful rhetoric, and then reminded the House that he wore blackface more times than he can remember. So who's the real racist? Right? You have far more evidence that Trudeau is a racist than these truckers, who have had like probably the most diverse crowd of protesters that I've seen in a while. Indian folks. I've seen some Muslim, Middle Eastern folks, all just banding together. I think they have like bounce houses going on right now for kids to jump on. They're out here building sheds and just having like this nice, community to take care of themselves. And so, yeah, check out this speech by Candice Bergen. It's really, a perfect kind of like maybe less than a minute. And here you have Justin, right? Mr. Inclusivity, Mr. D&I, Mr. I'm not a racist. And what's up with his hand on that woman's throat like that? Like like very strange energy going on. Very Andrew Cuomo, Joe Biden energy happening right now. Nobody really talked about that. But definitely a scumbag, right? Elitist who just basically wants to, like, he has no principles. And this is just part of the course for the left. They don't really have principles. Their only principle is power, right? And particularly power for themselves. So anyway, very good speech. Very, like, this guy's support right now is dwindling. Like his image is being tarnished, right? And continues to by the day. And then there's been an interesting development. So let's talk a little bit less about the wins right now, which have been happening. I already spoke about Saskatchewan, walking back, right? So their restrictions around the COOF. Let's talk about some of the opposition. So unfortunately, it's not all been, glitz and glamour for these folks, these truckers. They actually got dropped by GoFundMe. So after raising almost $10 million on GoFundMe, they got dropped by the company because whatever, right? Oh, you guys are bad guys. This is now an occupation. We've heard a report of maybe something, not so savory happening. We're scared. There's even speculation that, the Canadian government actually asks GoFundMe to remove the drive from its site. That hasn't been confirmed to my knowledge yet, but there is that accusation. But the good news is that GiveSendGo, which is like a Christian sort of right-wing alternative to GoFundMe, picked them up pretty much immediately. And now they have gotten their funds back up to over 2 million now, right? Within maybe the past couple of days after GoFundMe booted them from the platform, which is still a win, right? It just moved from one direction to the other. Hey, one major development on this entire GiveSendGo story. So Rumble, the video website alternative to YouTube, they have actually offered to help GiveSendGo with its server problems as the fundraiser for Canadian truckers, I guess, broke the internet. And their site has been having all kind of problems since this fundraiser moved to their platform. And so we have here on Twitter, we are hearing, Rumble says, but have not validated that GiveSendGo was experiencing server issues and a possible denial of service attack. If true, we're happy to help in any way that we can. We have equipment and engineers on standby. Feel free to reach out. GiveSendGo, replied, and now they're kind of coordinating, apparently, to help GiveSendGo kind of stabilize in terms of its servers that are being overwhelmed by this fundraiser. And also DDoS attacks, which are bringing down the site and the fundraiser pretty frequently. And then one major update on this. So I tried over the course of making this video like 5 times to access the Freedom Convoy's GiveSendGo site. And now it apparently is working. And I've been able to see an update on how that's coming along. Apparently they're up to $3.1 million now, over $3.1 million. So huge development here. Not sure if this was perhaps spurred in part by Rumble, offering their support, right, and maybe helping out, or whether that was more of a good PR play. Either way, maybe a little bit of both. Their website does appear to be working as of right now, which is great, and they've actually far surpassed $2 million at this point, and are on their way to even surpass the $10 million mark that was raised on GoFundMe. So really great news. They actually have a new goal now of $16 million for the Freedom Convoy. So I'll keep you all posted on this one. And part of the real static for GoFundMe really came because people were absolutely livid, myself included, when they got booted from the platform. And that was because, or actually led, I should say, to a couple of states' attorneys general basically threatening to sue them. And so you have, Ron DeSantis, immediately he was like, yeah, these guys should be investigated. So it's one of those things where, like, if there's anyone in the state of Florida who gave money and GoFundMe did not return the funds to them, like they were about to get sued, right? And so you have West Virginia, did the same. It was like, hey, if residents have been basically scammed or defrauded, let's say, go ahead and contact the AG's office. Let them know that they've been victimized by a deceptive act or practice by GoFundMe. So these threats started coming in, these legal threats, and then just the hoopla. And so GoFundMe was originally about to keep the money, right? That's the story here. They were like, no, we're going to give that $9 to $10 million to worthy causes that we deem appropriate, which is completely ridiculous. I mean, it's just a scam. And they reversed course once they got these legal threats from a few states' attorneys generals. And so now they're going to be fully refunding these funds back to the actual providers. Which is a great development. So that's actually a win at the end of the day, right? You're on track to get that $9 to $10 million again over the next few days back. All your people are getting full refunds, and GoFundMe is now losing even more so, I think, the support of freedom-loving Americans and people around the world. So still a win, even despite the adversity. There's one interesting kind of like, let's say, nuance or undertone that I thought was worth mentioning here. Like around the truckers. And so one of Canada's state broadcaster, right, they had this weird conspiracy theory that's saying that Russian actors may be behind the 50,000 strong freedom convoy. And I thought that was like really an interesting statement, mainly because of the fact that if you've been following some of the news, there's this super viral, I mean, it has to be over 4 or even 5 million clip going around of an AP reporter basically confronting the State Department. Ned Price is the spokesperson for the State Department. He had the most epic 5-minute or so exchange with this reporter, Matt Lee, on Thursday, basically saying, where's your proof that Russia is looking to imminently attack Ukraine, right, through a false flag operation or some other method? Like, you've been making the assertion like continuously over the past week or so. We have yet to see the evidence, despite you making those allegations. Where's the actual proof? And repeatedly here in this clip, Ned Price is like, well, I just told you it. I just said it, as if the allegation itself is proof. But I thought this was an interesting end because, in the midst of this pressured and heated conversation, he says, if you doubt the credibility of the government, you can find solace in information that the Russians are putting out. That is for you. And so there's this really interesting, like almost uniparty globalist like undertone here, like in Western countries, I guess particularly the U.S. and Canada in this case, where like if you question the government's motives or actions or decisions or statements, then the knee-jerk fallback response from the political elites is you must be working with Russia. I mean, it's just surreal that in 2022 we would have this sort of like knee-jerk response. And frankly, they've been priming this anti-Russian sentiment now pretty much since like the Trump election back in 2016, right? Like they've been priming the pump for the past 5-6 years to make this sort of like, I don't know, McCarthyist, whatever, for us or against us kind of situation, which is pretty crazy, right? That I guess there's a statement to a hammer, everything is a nail. And to see the truckers get slandered, right, by their state government at the same time that, the U.S. state government slanders the free press. And this is not even a Fox News guy. This is an AP reporter, right? And even he's getting called a Russian propagandist. The knee-jerk response for those who have no argument is you're either, working for Putin or you're a racist. That's pretty much the only two arguments that the left has. So pretty interesting stuff overall. I'll keep you guys posted on this whole freedom convoy and Canadian protest movement. All the stuff that I mentioned last time around this becoming global has solidified, by the way. So there's still serious talk of and fundraising going on for a convoy from California to DC. There's other countries, even Australia, I think, that's getting into the mix with this. So really, really interesting stuff. And critical to the freedom movement. We have to talk just a little bit in passing about this whole Joe Rogan situation as well. So, if you've been even cursorily following the news over the past week, this has been pretty much maybe the top story of the week in terms of prominence. And I don't want to spend too much time on it. Basically, he, gave sort of a halfway apology last weekend, I think it was, or the beginning of this week, saying, hey, I had some controversial clips in the past or interviews in the past. I'll try to make it more balanced going forward. And then he had a follow-up this past weekend, and this follow-up was actually a lot more saucy than the last one, because it was stuff that even I didn't know that Joe said, many years ago over his like 12 plus, year long career in this media space, in which he basically used the N-word, at least maybe half a dozen to a dozen times, right? In various interviews and discussions and contexts. And someone strung all that together and made him look like an absolute, monster, like a racist. And he basically apologized sincerely this time. And, the world is sort of reacting to that. I don't have much here to add beyond what's already been said. A lot of folks are talking about this, but it's not looking good for Rogan in terms of Spotify. I don't see Spotify. This one is too damaging, right? Like the Koof controversy was one thing. Like you can kind of survive that, by saying, oh, here's my response. I'll have more balanced conversations going forward. This one right here, even if they overreact to it, normies are going to see, oh my gosh, I can't believe he used the N-word repeatedly, like my sister or like my brother or something like that, who doesn't really follow politics. They may see this clip of Rogan and say, oh my gosh, he must be a terrible person, without having ever listened to him ever before. So I think it's only a matter of time before Spotify caves on this stuff. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that he didn't use it to to my knowledge, call someone the N-word. He was more so quoting, different situations, different shows, different, titles for, shows and albums and things of that nature, throughout different instances in the past, mostly by Black people, right, who are able to use the word freely without punishment. So I still stand with my boy Rogan here. He is the top of the list in terms of the scalps that the left is coming for right now, and more to come on that one. But I don't see him lasting till the end of this year on Spotify. They're gonna have to respond to the normies, and the avalanche of people like standing against him is growing by the day. It would seem. So next up, we have to talk about this situation with Whoopi Goldberg just a little bit here. So I thought this was an interesting story, not because of what Whoopi said, and forgive the irrelevant video here, but more so about the beliefs that she had, but behind what she said. And one of the most underreported, I think, details to come out of this Whoopi Goldberg scandal, and this is her basically saying, what happened in World War II era, between the Germans and the Jews. That persecution there was not racist. It was just about evil, bad people. So that was widely condemned on both the left and the right. And one of the things that came out of that is ADL modified the definition of what it means to be a racist. That's huge to me because, so just for context, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but back when the George Floyd incident happened back in summer of 2020, and there was a bunch of racial justice protests, etc. The ADL redefined racism, and they said it is now the marginalization and or oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed racial hierarchy that privileges white people, which is absolutely maddening. And that has existed for going on 2 years, at least a year and a half now, right? And so that means, just think about all the racial tensions there are in the world, right? The Chinese and Indians are known to have, racial tension. The Chinese and Black people, particularly Africans. We have the Jews and Palestinians, right, who have tension over the years. If I had to guess, the North and South Koreans, they've had tension over the years. There's just we have the Protestants and the Catholics in history, right? Both white people for the most part but just like tons and tons of different of like racially undertoned situation. You have the Indians in the what is it, the Pakistanis, right? Who have basically, been having border struggles for years and years. So a lot of racial tension between those two countries. So many different countries, right, have had these racial issues, but yet our ADL and our social elites are so myopic that in response to the 2020 protests, they literally redefine the word. And this is why I respect people like Jordan Peterson, who's very particular around words and definitions, because they mean everything. When you've attacked the fundamental meaning of a word, you are rewriting history and dismantling our very culture and society, right? And they got away with it for the better part of 2 years before the ADL said, hold on a second, is Whoopi Goldberg and other people basically reframing all racism as white versus black? So when that goes too far, this kind of stuff can happen. So Whoopi is now suspended. She's not fired yet, and she's like kind of been on timeout to reevaluate. The biggest question is like, what does it look like? We know what it looks like when the right goes too far, right? We know what it looks like, right? You have cross burnings and, all kind of bad stuff happening, right? What does it look like when the left goes too far? At what point do we say, hold on a second, like this is getting out of hand? And I think this is it. Frankly, this is it. So overall, I'm going to give this one an A tier. I think it's definitely an eye opener. And, we're in this sort of post-Trump phase now where I think folks on the left are starting to actually like see past their blind sort of rage and hatred of Donald Trump and the right. And every now and then they have these moments of self-reflection where they're like, hold on a second, maybe we got something wrong. So good development, good for them to go back to their original, basically traditional name for our definition for racism. So moving on now, we have to talk about the kids. So this kind of went underreported last week, but I thought it was a major sort of development in the culture wars because, there's certain, let's say, demographics where if you start engaging them with truth and facts and information about what's happening, like, and they begin to get involved, like that is a cataclysmic shift in the direction of what needs to happen. And so one of those demographics, I already kind of mentioned mothers in the past, are students, right? We have literally middle school and high school students. And last week was a heck of a week because what happened was basically all of these states, they're getting more and more authoritarian around the mask and the COOF and the mandates and such. I think Pfizer just this past week, got authorization to jab up the kids. So it was getting more and more authoritarian. And it was interesting because Virginia students, they got slapped with suspensions this past week for not wearing masks. And basically they, this is hashtag do not comply territory. And it's not just in Virginia, by the way, right? This stuff happened all over the place this past week. So we have here Lincoln Middle School, right? Parents and students rallying against the state mask rules, right? This is in Lincoln, California. This is left-wing commie utopia right now, the state of California. For this kind of like organization to be happening in that state is quite something. And then we have PL, which I believe is in Washington. Yeah, these student organizers saying, we don't think it's right. And they staged a walkout to protest the statewide mask mandate. And look at all these kids. I mean, this is crazy, right? These kids, probably like none of them or like a few of them can actually drive, right? None of them can drink, right? Like, and they understand what freedom means. They understand that it's valuable enough to sacrifice grades, right? You're getting, suspended or maybe even, I don't know, expelled or, getting behind on homework, whatever the case might be. They're saying there are things that are more important than that. This is a massive development, right? For these kiddos to get off of, the TikToks and the Instagrams and whatever that they're doing these days, the Fortnites, and to actually say, you know what? We have a right to say no. Don't let these masks silence you. Just straight up, America, America, Americana is a beautiful thing right now, right? And it's student-led, which is the most important thing, right? Because when this whole COOF pandemic stuff started developing, we would usually see parents right, protesting on behalf of their kids or speaking out on behalf of their kids. And then like every now and then, like at a school board meeting, you might see a kid giving like a testimony or whatever it is, or speaking to the school board for like a minute or two. But like this is an entirely different phenomenon. You don't need a school board anymore. They're just walking the hell out. They're just walking out. They're just straight walking out. And it doesn't stop there, right? So now you have Stanislaus County, and this is serious numbers. They had a little more than 200 students, right, who went out to protest. And this one was probably the biggest one to happen this past week. 200 students just straight walking out to stand against this COOF nonsense and the mask mandates. And this one was kind of interesting one, right? Because so what happened was they basically got thrown into, if you refuse to wear a mask, you got thrown into the gym, like basically on timeout. And then they turned off the heat in the gym. So now you're like in like extra cold gym. And I guess the police were called. So this is like, first of all, it's like a form of torture to like throw you guys into like a freezing gym to get you to be punished for your non-compliance for wearing a mask. So I guess the police were called because it was too cold, and then the police came and turned the heat back on. Definitely would encourage you guys to check out this like Red State article here, and also to follow Reopen California Schools on Twitter. They're amazing. They have all the deets about this topic, and I've been following it for a long time. But probably one of the most salient things that I thought came out of this particular report from Red State is the superintendent. They had he had some comments, right, around why would they be so heavy-handed on this. And he said the superintendent said the school district would risk losing funding if he violated the state mandate, and that he cannot jeopardize the well-being of the district. So this is like being deemed from on high, right? This is like a state-sponsored authoritarianism. They have to follow these nonsensical mandates, right, for little kids who are not at risk, right? Because if not, Gavin Newsom is going to withdraw his support, right, his funding. So it's okay to give, billions and billions of dollars to, super highways that never transpire. The high-speed rail, I think, was a failed project in California. It's okay to give billions of dollars to basically criminals, right, who use stimulus money to basically, defraud, taxpayers, right? That happened and is being investigated, by the way. Billions and billions of dollars wasted for people claiming, stimulus that weren't supposed to get it. But hey, we cannot waste money on, kids being able to exercise their freedoms. No. So that's where the priorities are in California right now. So very, very interesting development. I think we have to move this probably to the A tier for now. This might become an S tier story. I think it needs to reach a little bit more critical mass, and I need that. Like it needs to kind of get to Virginia, was that Loudoun County level, right? Where the parents came to a school board meeting and said, my kid has been assaulted in the bathroom, like. And that became a national news story that became a rallying cry for parents and moms, again, to come out and stand against this and giving Youngkin and his team the win. So that kind of rally and outcry needs to happen for this to move to the S tier, but an incredible development nonetheless. And I'll definitely keep you guys posted if this becomes kind of more of a super national news story. Thanks for listening to today's rundown. If you liked what you heard, please comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.